All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Gainesville City Commission, July 21st, 2021. One item on our agenda, solid waste analysis update. I understand that there is some additional backup and a new recommendation. So, Madam Clerk, can you help with that?
Absolutely. We did receive some last minute additional backup or edited backup from OEI, and I'm expecting them at any moment to be bringing that printed backup for you all to have in front of you, and also an updated recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So, when we adopt the agenda, well, I think if we just want to accept the updated backup, edited backup, and the new recommendation, which they'll bring a printed copy of that new recommendation language too. Okay. Any?
Recommendation is in the agenda. It's just the additional backup.
Oh, the one we have here is the updated. Okay, very good. Okay. Any questions, or is there a motion to adopt our agenda?
So moved. Sorry.
Motion and a second. Motion was by Santos, second by Commissioner Ward. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Ariola absent. All right. Who's up first? Ms. Warren, are you going to start our discussion off today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner. Sylvia Warren, Office of Equity and Inclusion, Acting EO Director. I do apologize. We did receive an additional backup item from Ms. Roberta Griffith, and I believe that you all have that in front of you, and just a little bit of revised language regarding our recommendation. So I'm here today to kind of talk about our solid waste analysis and give an update on it. As you know, our office, we're here to provide that update, and we want to talk about the recent events surrounding what's available from solid waste, strategic initiatives, and also our IT department. We've been working in collaboration with the city manager's office and with these departments as well. And it was determined that there should be a process to kind of try to provide some solutions if we were able to get the data that we needed to provide these solutions. And there were a series of steps that we wanted to take. The first was to develop the data set that would be used. The second step was that if the sufficient data existed, that we would analyze this to determine if the pay-as-you-throw system is in place was inequitable. The third step was if the data demonstrated that the system was determined to be inequitable, that we would develop solutions. And then that if there was not sufficient data, that would be reported to the commission, and that if the payment system is equitable, that would be reported to the commission as well. So what we will let you know is that our office was provided with 3 data files. You should see that in your backup. The first file was provided by the Office of Strategic Initiatives. This contained data on the city's annual survey about satisfaction with refuse pickup. The last 2 files were provided by the Department of Public Works and mapped by the Department of Technology and Innovation. These files contain of cart sizes across the city, along with the amount of tonnage by tipping fee. It was determined by the Office of Strategic Initiatives and the Department of Technology and Innovation and Public Works that there was insufficient data to submit to our office to determine if the existing system was inequitable at this time. So what we're recommending at this point is that we assess possible means to start collecting data that may support an analysis regarding the trash and recycling, and that the department reassess this topic when sufficient data is available. We do have Ben Howard, our DEI manager, available to kind of talk about the data that we wanted to see, what was provided, and what we would need to be able to actually complete an equity analysis. I was also told by the city manager's office that we do have someone available to talk about this data that was provided as well, what may not be available, what may be available, gaps, et cetera. So if there are any questions, we're prepared at this time from the equity standpoint.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Warren. So just to summarize, and Ms. Warren, we're just getting the, Ms. Byrne is passing out the new backup. So if I can just try to briefly, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
Okay.
That right now, the Office of Equity and Inclusion believes that it would be prudent to gather more data, and so we would be in the process right now of figuring out what that data would be, and then the means to collect that data before making a final decision or recommendation.
Precisely.
Okay.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I was hearing you correctly.
That is correct.
We do have a few lights here, at least one right now, and so let's let's get to these questions, and then we'll figure out how to move forward. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to kind of clarify what you said, is my understanding that what you're saying is that you do not have enough information to determine if it's equitable or inequitable. Is that correct?
That is correct. And what we talked about it, we discussed it amongst the charters. There may be some data available that we can gather to determine, to make some type of determination. But based on what we've been provided, what our office has been provided at this time, we're not able to make that determination.
Okay, so I guess the report that came out before, I guess is that being kind of rescinded then, and you're re-looking at the data that is available, and I guess requesting to have more data?
Okay, so I will let Ben Howard. Ben Howard is on the line. He'll talk to you a little bit about the process and what we were provided and what we were not able to get to make that determination. So he'll give you a little bit of detail on that.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Howard.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Mayor.
Ben, you're a little low. The volume's a little low. I don't know if you can get closer to a mic or.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So in the original analysis that we did, what we were looking at was usage data. So we're looking at tonnage across neighborhoods, tonnage that was collected for recycling, trash and yard waste, and extrapolating, comparing that to census information for the demographics of the area where the tonnage was to show this correlation in usage patterns. But in some of the questions and concerns that came up following that meeting, there was a question about whether or not the usage patterns followed were in alignment with the basically who had what cart, which size cart, right? There was a question of if people are, so we were working under the assumption that if people were generating more trash, therefore they had a larger size cart. But as we had deeper conversations with solid waste and other internal city staff, we just recognized that there's many different factors around why people have different cart sizes. And so what we wanted to do was make sure, because our recommendation is based on this idea that people are being charged more or less in certain areas of the city. And so we want to make sure that the usage is in alignment with where the carts actually are, and that we can align demographics for things like race and income to the actual cart size and what people are paying for, because that's what would determine whether or not a pay-as-you-throw system is more or less equitable than, say, a flat rate system or some other type of pay-as-you-throw system where it's variable, but it's a different way that it's determined, right? That's what we attempted to do, was correlate the locations of the actual carts, which show you how much people are paying in those areas, with census information. And we ran into various issues with that process and correlating that data, which would raise questions about the reliability of a subsequent analysis that would be done with that data. And I cannot get into the deeper nitty-gritty of what those reliability issues were with census and the process of cleaning that up and correlating it. But there are, I think, folks from the city manager's office on the line that could get into the data science and that part of the process, and what they found.
Yeah, I'm glad we're looking at the cart size, because I do agree that that's actually what matters, because that's what people are paying or not paying in terms of what they're being used. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. City Manager Feldman, can you just go over the time frame for the renewal of the contract, the solid waste contract?
So we are shooting for an October 1st, 22 contract to be in place for October 1st, 22 on there. So I can walk back on the steps if you need, but we're ultimately hoping by April of 22 you have made a selection of who that will be, so that there's enough time, if there's a change in vendor, to do a switchover.
Okay, so considering that's the time frame and we need new data, what is going to be the the process and the time frame for getting this information before being able to make the new decision about the contract that we're going to put in place in October for a decade? Is that correct?
Correct. So again, as I've said previously, I don't believe that the method that we are allocating the cost is applicable to who your vendor is. So the vendor is going to give us a dollar amount for picking up the entire city. And then we do a cost allocation, currently it's based upon container size, to our neighbors. And so that's how that's done. So who the vendor is and what the charge is just tells us what the monthly bill is. It doesn't directly translate to the monthly charge to the neighbor, right? That's something that we as a city determine based upon a methodology how to allocate. Our current methodology is based upon container size.
Okay, so then, how soon do you think we would be able to get the data and then analyze it in order to get in order to come to any type of conclusion?
So that's the big question, and it's really centered around two parts. One is, what is the data that is needed? And we would, since the analysis would be done by the Office of Equity and Inclusion, they have to tell us what data they need. And preliminary discussions basically was down to the household as to who's living there, household size, demographics, income, et cetera, so that we can tie it to the cart size. I don't know how we get that level of detail to do that type of analysis. There are ways to do sampling that may be more, but I'm not sure what the sample size would be or if that's what the commission wants us to do. So we need some direction as to both our offices and to OEI as to what you'd like. I mean, gathering data is going to be the hardest part of this. And I mean, there are sometimes you could use proxies, and Dr. Griffith or Dr. Santana, Ms. Philpott could probably talk to you a little bit more about the technical aspects of how to use proxies. But bottom line, this would be an extremely complicated data analysis to accomplish, and it probably outside the scope of what we can do internal with the other work that we have. So we would probably need to figure out who to contract with and at what cost.
Can you remind me how much yard waste pickup is?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. Mr. Heimbach might.
Yeah,
If you-
please come up. Thank you. There's folks at home that are also watching.
Back from Public Works, Sustainability Manager. I don't have it off the top of my head either, but it's around $4 per unit.
$4
Per month, yes.
per unit per month?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then we pay for the disposal after that.
We pay for the disposal?
Yes.
Okay. So we're charging $4. So tell me what a unit is.
What a unit is?
Mm-hmm.
It's a household, basically a household that has a meter that receives service.
Okay, so per household,
Yeah.
it's $4 per household.
Yeah, again, it's approximate. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Per what? Per
home, we get charged by
I'm
the
sorry,
contractor.
Is this per month?
The contractor charges us per month
Per month.
to pick up the yard waste.
Okay. And can you remind me what recycling is?
That one's not off the top of my head. It's between $2 and $3. I can get those numbers to you exactly.
2 to 3 per month, and then
Yeah.
$4 per month. Okay.
And then it's like another $5 for garbage.
And then we pay for the disposal.
Yes.
And then how much do we pay for the disposal?
For yard waste, you pay about $14 per ton. For garbage, $52 per ton. For recycling, it varies based on the commodity market.
On average, like, or it doesn't have to be average. What's the range?
Yeah, it swings. It has recently swung from about $50 per ton paying. The recent changes in the commodity markets, we actually are getting a check for $10 per ton.
Okay. I might have some more questions later, but that's a good
Okay.
start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank everyone who has been involved in the process thus far. I will tell you what I hope to get out of today is very specifically for us to charge staff with reaching out to everyone who has a garbage container and letting them know that there are options. And there are a variety of ways to do that outreach and to engage. What I would like to have back, and I'm not going to make this motion yet, but what I would like for us to do is to have the city of Gainesville, to have the manager's office come back to us within, say, a 90-day period with a plan for how the city of Gainesville can contact everyone and say, hey, if you have this size, it costs you this much. If you have this size, it would cost you less. If you have this, it would cost you more. If you're consistently overfilling, maybe you should consider going up. If you're consistently underfilling, maybe you should save yourself some money. I think that is a thing we should do regardless of the outcomes otherwise. I think it's a common sense approach, and that is the motion I intend to make later. Thank you.
Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Ward, I do like that idea. I think rather than the city, it might bleed over into GRU, since that might be the fastest way to approach folks who have city trash collection.
When I say city of Gainesville, I mean the city of Gainesville.
Okay, so that was, okay, that works better. So I just wanted to confirm that I understood this right. So Mr. Feldman, if you'll bear with me, we will not necessarily have any further stalling in the negotiation of a contract, because that total amount, whatever it comes to serve the city, is not determined by how much people are going to pay. It will be broken down later. That total cost, whatever we negotiate, will then be either broken down by tiers or one flat fee. It will be after the fact. So there's no reason to stall further on the larger contract.
That's correct, and but we haven't been stalling. We've been.
Sorry,
so,
just,
yeah.
I meant to not finish.
There's no reason to delay releasing the invitation to bid.
Okay, thank you, sir. I just wanted to confirm that one so we can move along with that one as staff gets more of that data back and we figure out what data exactly we need. But yeah, I'm fully in support of staff's recommendation that we should do maybe a deeper dive into the data collection, so that we're basing things on data and I guess not necessarily bad data, but not well put together methodology. So I fully support moving forward with this one. Would there be any idea, we would have to figure this out before October 1st, because that's when we'd be issuing new bills to people, correct? So we have over a year to figure out the data and the pay situation?
So we could change billing whenever we'd like. That just requires an action of the commission to adopt a new rate schedule for that. So we're not tied to October. However, also at the direction of the commission, we are exploring moving a portion of the solid waste charge to the property tax bill through a non-ad valorem assessment. And that would be, if we do that, ultimately that would be fixed and would need to be in place. Just like you do the fire assessment, we would establish the rate in July and approve it finally in September for the property tax bill that comes out in November. So we would have a little less flexibility there, but we're working on both at the same time. So
That second option could be reassessed every year, though.
correct,
And the other option we can reassess whenever we want.
correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Feldman.
Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Ward, I would support that too. I think that's something that we definitely should be doing. I want to make sure like just we don't send something in the GRU bill, because I don't think that's the best way to do it. But we also could, I think we have data on how big a house is, and we have data on what the cart size is. And if there's a large cart size for a smaller place, it's probably more likely that that doesn't work too. So we can be proactive as well in highlighting which ones are kind of oddities. If it's like a 4,000 square foot house or like a 3,000 large house, then they probably would likely have a larger can, but I think that's one way to allocate resources in a more proactive way. So for the data what exactly is the data that the Office of Equity and Inclusion is asking for? And I guess the manager was saying it may not be able to gather it. I guess I want to make sure that we're giving direction that it's something that's possible to do. And I guess how are we going to do that?
Okay. Ben's going to speak to what we've been asking for and more than likely what we would try to get forthcoming.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Warren. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The data that we're asking for, or that we're initially looking for, was an ability to correlate so we have geolocated where the carts are. We have that data through GRU service contracts, essentially. And what we're trying to do is see if there is a correlation between larger cart sizes or smaller cart sizes in certain geographic areas of the city, which, as we mostly know, have correlations with other demographic factors, including race and income. That's what we have not been able to do. And I cannot speak to the specifics of why we weren't able to do that. I would sort of defer to some of the data scientists that ran those numbers and sort of determined that there was too big of a margin of error for any analysis that we would do to be reliable. And so the question is, how do we assess that using some other data set or some other methodology, which is not as, in an ideal world, what we would do is each individual, contract with the cart size would have demographic information tied to it, but we can't do that for a variety of reasons. And so we have to figure out sort of what is a methodology to figure out some way of collecting this type of information in a way that's reliable, that can be extrapolated to the whole. Hopefully that answers your question.
I guess that answers what you're looking for, but do we have an ability to get that? I guess I don't know who on your staff is working on that, or
I think we don't know yet,
initiative.
And that's what we need a little bit more time, is to figure out what do we have the capability of getting.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. City Manager, how does the city paying for disposal, how does that integrate with our solid waste contract?
So let me start from the beginning. So we charge for solid waste all of our residential neighbors based upon the carts that they have, a rate. So an $18.
So when you say cart, in my mind, that means garbage.
Yes, that's the black
Yeah.
bin that's out in front of your house. So you can have an 18-gallon cart, okay, and we charge $18.50 a month.
Yep.
You could have a 35-gallon cart, and we charge $24 a month. We have a 64-gallon cart, and we charge $29.75.
Okay.
And a 95-gallon cart, which we charge $37 per month for.
And then we charge $3 to.
Well, no,
I'll let you finish.
let me finish.
Okay.
On there. So that's what we charge.
Okay.
In that charge, and Michael and Phil can correct me if I'm wrong, okay, which I very well may be, so they can jump up here. But within that charge, okay, that's how you're paying that's how you also get recycling and you get yard waste, correct? Okay, on there. So we provide full service based upon the size that you get. Now, you pay us, okay, and then we have contractors that we have to pay. Currently, our contractors, WCA, they pick up all three of those: municipal solid waste, yard waste, and recycling. Okay, once they pick up the municipal solid waste, we have to take that to a landfill,
Yep.
and we have to pay the tipping fee
Yep.
on there.
Okay.
So in your cart rate is also to reimburse us for the tipping fees. Same thing with the recycling and same thing with the yard waste. So,
Okay.
so you as a neighbor paying for the service, all you need to do is pay the monthly bill and put your stuff out.
Got it.
Okay, and then from there, we get all this revenue in. It's roughly, I don't even want to conjecture because I've got too many budget numbers in my mind right now. But we collect all that money, and from there, we pay the waste hauler and the solid waste, as well as do some other solid waste activities,
Okay.
such as pick up all the public garbage cans that are around along the streets and things along that line, do cleanups and so forth. So our solid waste staff is paid for from that fee as well. So it's basically a user fee, and we operate on full cost recovery. The whole concept of pay as you throw deals not with any of the real pickup or collection, but rather the variable that's associated with tipping fees, because we pay tipping fees based upon tonnage.
Okay.
And so the more a household puts out, the higher our tipping fees are. So we want to encourage recycling. And so by putting a charge based upon the size of the container, which represents municipal solid waste, we tell people you can have a smaller container if you divert your waste stream to those orange and blue recycling bins out there. And that helps reduce our costs in terms of both picking up and disposing. So that's the whole concept of pay as you throw, is because the variable is for us is how much a household puts out. Okay, the more you put out, the more you should pay on there. The question really is what data can be collected that will correlate the size of that container to things like income levels, household size, and the such. We as, at least talking with my staff, we don't know of data that exists today that can make that correlation. So I hope that was satisfactory.
Yeah, so it was. So I want to go back to this $4 per month in yard waste. That's accurate? That's still like $4 per month?
That's
no matter what
that's
the
what we
household-
pay the contractor, okay, not what the neighbor pays us,
Okay,
right? So they only pay us one fee, and that's based upon the container size. So one of those four fees, 1850, 24, 29, 75, and 37, is what we collect. Okay, and there's a line on the GRU bill for that, and we collect that. So we don't collect a separate recycling charge and a separate yard waste. What Michael was talking about is what we pay the vendor per house, correct? Okay, all right.
so today we're here to talk about what kind of data we need.
To determine whether cart size is in relation to household size, income levels.
Are we just talking about the cart size? Because that's what I'm confused about. I feel like we also need to be talking about the recycling bins, the number of recycling bins, and the amount of yard waste. Because that was the earlier argument, is that if we look at homes on the northwest side of town that are 2 to 3 times as big and oftentimes have yards that are 2 to 3 times as big, and there's a demographic that is different than on the east side of town, that we are oftentimes talking about, and also with recycling, that we are talking about much more yard waste. That is then, if it's an amount of money that people are paying, that they're subsidizing people on the east side of town, because, the people with smaller yards are subsidizing people on the west side of town with larger yards because of the sheer amount of tonnage that we're being, and the tipping fee.
So I don't think that you will ever find anywhere in the U.S. a perfect system, because taking that same example, if you have a lawn service company, they may cart away the waste at all, and so you may be paying for yard waste disposal within your monthly bill to this, that you receive from the city, but not using yard waste at all because your lawn service company is hauling it away.
Does that happen?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
I'm seeing it, when I'm driving by.
but I've seen it both
all the
ways.
stuff
right?
out on the,
Yep,
on the side of the road where.
I've seen
picking
it
it up.
both ways all throughout the city.
So that's another, so that would be some information that we need. And then is it possible to get that?
See, there's lots of information that we need. The ability to collect it is where I struggle. Right? I mean, I can't tell you which homes have lawn services and which don't, which lawn services put it out at the curb and which ones haul it away. There are some people that don't want a bag of yard waste in front of their house for a week while we're waiting to get it picked up. So I think there are so many variables out there. I'm not sure how we would actually get that much information. And that's the part that I've been struggling with as we've been going through this exercise.
I'm done, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there are a couple of other costs that come into play on a lot of this that are, to my mind, one of the reasons we must have an engagement process here. And I know I'm talking about an entirely different thing than is in the agenda, but I think it's kind of important. If you are paying every month for a can that is, or a receptacle that is a cart, whatever, that is too small, and you need to throw more things away, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go to the grocery store and you're gonna buy the yellow bags, which are expensive. I wanna say they're $7, I may be off on that, but I think it's $7. So that you have a place to put your garbage, to get it picked up when it overflows the receptacle that you have. Not uncommon. If you look around, you'll see a lot of those in many neighborhoods. Now, let's say you don't have $7, or you just aren't going to spend $7, and your cart just overflows. If that happens enough, code enforcement will cite you, and should cite you, because that's the process we've put out there and expect them to do, because at that point, you've got garbage all over the neighborhood, right? So I think it is critical that we reach out to people and make sure they're using a size that makes sense for them. We can save people a lot of money, save our neighbors a lot of money, I think, by doing this. At the very least, we can reach out and let folks know that we have been thinking about them and that we care whether they're using the system to their best benefit. And with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and move that we direct the manager's office to bring us within 90 days a plan with costs included to engage every garbage container user to help them best use the city's collection service, recognizing that several charter officers will need to be included in execution of such a strategy.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second on the floor. Do you have that written down?
Only in my chicken scrawl. I will text it to you in a moment, or email it to you in a moment.
Yeah, thank you. It's a long motion, so I want to make
Yep.
sure the clerk has it as intended, and certainly when we vote on it, we know exactly what's expected as well. Okay, Commissioner Sacco.
So while we're typing it, could you repeat the first part again, Commissioner Ward? Plan to engage the
I
community?
move that we direct the manager's office to bring us within 90 days a plan with costs included to engage every garbage container user to help them best use the city's collection service, recognizing that several charter officers will need to be included in execution of such a strategy.
Thank you. So that to me sounds more like an education campaign than.
I prefer to think of it as engagement, and we have an amazing engagement director.
We do. So I don't think there's much of the data collection suggestion there. So however we do the data collection, I want us to be whether we pick up race or income or number of people in the household, I want us to be sensitive that a lot of folks, for a variety of reasons, whether they're renters who are only supposed to have 3 people in there, but, a cousin is now living, whether they're undocumented, whether, a relative who's not supposed to be on the lease is staying there. There's a number of reasons why people are afraid of data gathering. And the last thing I want us to do is create a public record with, noting there's a number of Black families that live on this street, and then that becomes public record. So I want us to be really sensitive on how we gather this information, and I guess how it's coded, because I don't want it to intimidate people from responding and giving us the information we need. So I just ask that we consider that when we try to figure out the data collection aspect of it. Thank you.
Commissioner Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Johnson, on the yard waste, I agree. I think there is better ways to pay for that and do that. I think one of the ways that we could do it, and probably is, I think more likely, if you have a larger yard, you're more likely to use yard waste. If you have a small yard, you're less likely to use it. Is by us charging by the size of the lot or the impervious area. That might be one way of looking at it, and then kind of charging more based on charging by the size of the lot, which I think is probably an indicator, but it'd probably be good to look at the data to see if that is actually true or not. But that might be a way to do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful contributions. I enjoyed hearing from all of you, for sure. I've got a bunch of questions. Most of them, I think, were for staff. If you don't know them on the spot, I am perfectly great with that. If you can get back to the commission in the form of a memo or something like that. Let's start with the food waste pilot program. Can anybody give me an update on that? How it's going? How many households we have participating versus who is eligible to participate? Just so we can kind of see where this might be headed.
Yeah, it's going very well. We're actually going to do a presentation to the Zero Waste Subcommittee soon. We have about 195, 96 participants in 3 communities near Sugarfoot, a couple of other communities. Mayor Poe, you're one of our participants.
Yes, I am.
It is going better than anticipated when it comes to contamination. We have virtually no contamination, and we're seeing the weights go up each week on the residents. So we're still compiling data. We've only been collecting about 6 months, but that's where we are right now.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes my weights go up because I forget to put it out on a Tuesday. Have to do double the next week.
I pay him to do it, and I forget to.
That is a variable, I think a positive variable as we look through this, as people can divert food waste from their municipal solid waste from the landfill stream. That's also an opportunity to reduce the size of the cart, and actually really helps us because food waste is very heavy. And it's a value-added product. I mean, if we can get enough of it, it really becomes something that we can sell or even use ourselves to create high-quality compost. Okay. Talked about your chicken scratch. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, Bobby, maybe you're the right person. I don't know, whoever feels like jumping up. I want to talk a little bit about data and so I guess in an ideal world, we're able to go to every single household and determine how many people live there, income, race and ethnicity, anonymize it so it's secure and safe, and then correlate that to how much MSW they're producing, how much recycling, and how much yard waste. I am just going to go out on a limb here and say that's highly unlikely that we're able to do that for every household in Gainesville. And if we figured out a way to do it, it would be cost prohibitive and time prohibitive. So there are lots of methodologies for collecting data through a smaller sample size that has a reliability or a margin of error that we could live with, like let's say something 5% or under. Can you speak a little bit to what we might be able to consider as you've heard what we want. I think it's household size, race, ethnicity, income, and then the service. Do you have any ideas about how we might approach that would be credible and defensible?
Sure. So, Bobby Griffith, Office of Strategic Initiatives. There is something out there right now, the sample, which is the American Community Survey, right? And that's what most people use. That's what we've all been referring to as far as the reliability being low. That is a census product. It is statistically significant. But when we start to compare that to our routes, you lose a lot of reliability because the census tracks things at block group, block, and census tract, which, as you can imagine, don't necessarily align with our zip codes and don't necessarily, or with our routes. And so when you start to try to compare that and overlay it, you lose reliability.
Can I ask a follow-up real quick there too? Because that's what I was curious about, the census tract data. That becomes stale pretty quickly then too, right? I mean, we have a lot of renters, they move. And so if it's 2020 data and we're looking in 2025, I mean, is that updated through the survey, or are we essentially assuming that the same household lives there in 25 as did in 20?
So we don't have the census full data, right? That's what we are just using, and looked at the American Community Survey. And yes, it does get stale pretty fast.
Yeah, okay.
At that granular level, but it is reliable over time. But to make very nuanced decisions on small geography is quite difficult.
And if we're going to do it right now is actually a good time, because it is as fresh as it's sort of going to be.
We haven't received the 20 census yet.
So it's pre-fresh.
So
It's
we're
like-
using, would we look at the 2019 ACS? Or the 2010 census, but 2019 ACS.
When do we expect to get that 2020?
What'd you say? 2015?
Oh, no. So we're using 2015 now. When would we
Why
expect
don't
to
you
get the
come up here,
2020?
Shayla? I can't hear you through your mask, sorry.
I mean, I know everything with the census was delayed like 6 months or so.
Sheila Santana in the Department of Technology. So right now, the initial analysis that we were doing was based on the American Community Survey 2015-2019, which is the most updated official data that we have. But since the census data that is taken every 10 years, we survey basically 1 to 6 households. And the other ones that come every year or every 5 years, which is the American Community Survey, the average that they do is 1 each 50 households. That's why the sample size is really different. That's why we have more margin of error when we are using the American Community Survey. The other thing is that we don't have the same level of analysis. So in the American Community Survey, we don't go to the block itself. So when we get the census that come every 10 years, so the 2020, we are going to have the block itself. So it's a smaller area of analysis, so the reliability of that area is higher because we are looking into only a block. Right now, with the American Community Survey, the smallest area of analysis that we have is the block group, which does not necessarily align with the boundary of the route, which was our area of analysis. The census for 2020 is forecast to come out on 2022. So probably in the next few years, we are going to see this data. And then every year is updated by the American Community Survey, and every 5 years they make this combination of this other sample analysis that they do every year to at least give an idea on how the data is going to trend from one for the 2020 to 2030, for example. So people have an understanding if how the demographics are going during that 10 years.
So that's predictive.
They are predicting, but with a smaller sample size. So it doesn't, it can give a trend and show what is happening, but it's not as reliable as the census, the census that comes every 10 years.
Okay, I understand. Very, very helpful. Thank you. With the census, so I'm hearing 2022, the states are now going through redistricting, which we're going to have to do too. I mean, we're charged with that. Anybody know when we're oh, actually, Michelle, I think we had charged your office with that. Do you know when we're supposed to get the data to be able to do our redistricting effort?
Thank you.
Thank you both. Very helpful. I might have more, but I'll call you back.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and actually, you're going to hear an agenda item on this tomorrow at your General Policy Committee meeting. But the dates that we've collected thus far is the Census Bureau is going to release data in a legacy format on August 16th, 2021, and then the final data that will come with tables and tools that folks can manipulate on September 30th, 2021.
Okay, and not to, you can, if you don't know if this correlates, that's fine, we can find out. But based on that data you expect to get for our redistricting purposes, should that also be to the level of detail that we might be able to get at some of these other questions we're asking here? I mean, is that going to be the sort of complete set of data that?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
Mayor, just from my experience, it is not. So
Okay.
we will get more refined sets as time progresses, but because of the redistricting, they provide sufficient data to do the redistricting, but not down to the levels that we need for factors that do not pertain to districting.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I mean, so that's important. You know, if we're going to make significant systemic changes, which I absolutely believe is worth exploring and we should do, assuming reliable data. If we're using data that's 11, 12 years old, or if it's a community survey and it's just so broad we can't get it focused, you know, I think I said this before, it's important to do this right and quickly, and if it means taking some interim measures until we get that data at some point next year, then that's, I think, important to state up front. Single family, multifamily, what's the?
Yeah, Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting,
Go
but I
ahead.
just want to make sure that, alert the commission that our live feed is out for the meeting. I think we may be able to reboot the system if you wanted to take a recess, but I can't guarantee that. So.
Okay, let's try that. Let's try the reboot. So I'm not speaking to anybody except in chambers here. Let's go ahead and take a recess. Madam Clerk, I don't know what's the reboot usually take? 15 minutes? 20 or 30? Ack!
I can wax poetic.
To reboot the system. That's a lot you want to keep doing. What's the will of the commission? It's back.
Okay.
Big old never mind.
All right, we have solved the problem.
Well done, fellas. Well done. Gold star. I was told my students a hypothetical gold star, and I never actually had them on me. Okay. Single family, multifamily. What size of residence do we stop having individual carts and bins and go to a receptacle, kind of solution?
So essentially, four units is
Yeah, okay.
curbside, and then 5 and above is, we do have some language in our ordinance that allows for someone to petition, that maybe has 4 units to have a dumpster and vice versa, but generally that's how it is.
Okay, yeah, okay, that was my thinking. And so everything we're talking about is really for 4 family dwellings and down, for our purposes here. And honestly, that really gets into the yard waste discussion as well. I mean, when you're talking about a 4-family unit, there's probably very little yard, and it's probably being taken care of externally. So lots of variables here. So let me. Yeah, I think I'm going to hope that this motion gets amended slightly to also be specific about directing some research and coming back with some recommendations on most effective data collection, especially in light of what I just learned about the census data and like when we're going to get that level of reliability on which to base a good longer term policy decision. So hopefully I don't think we need to do much different here, but I would hope that could be added. Okay, back to the commission. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was also hoping too that we could amend the motion as well to include that the solid waste department, who is the subject matter expert, be included in the data retrieval process and just be made an overall part of this effort.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Commissioner Ariola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Originally, I hit my light because I have the legislature's redistricting dates, but now that we don't need to hear that. Looking at the data, it seems to me as though there's very clear, at least in the initial research, that there's a segment of the population that we can figure out geographically about who's unsatisfied with their sort of collection services and prices. And if we're going to, as he said, I mean, the ideal would be that you can go door to door and get everybody's information. But since that's not going to be the case, we obviously need to put our efforts first and foremost on those areas that we saw, at least in our initial neighborhood survey, because in some of the areas people say they're very satisfied and completely satisfied. So I think if we're going to concentrate our efforts anywhere, it should be where people have said that they're not satisfied with their collection and their prices. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I am interested in hearing what someone else might move on data collection and strategy for that, but I like this to be clean.
Okay. Mr. Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So while the initial report is helpful, I don't think satisfaction with service or rates or recycling efforts or just general service, I don't think that directly correlates with the equity of the service. So I don't want us to give priority to one geographic area over another, or to begin with only one segment and then build from there. I don't think, I mean, I'm not satisfied with a lot of things in this country. That doesn't mean they're not equitable, or I'm not satisfied with a lot of things in life generally, but they might be equitable. That doesn't necessarily, one doesn't equal the other. So I wouldn't want us to focus on one area over the others, and then rush through the others if we start losing time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. So let's go to public comment, and then we'll see if anybody's interested in putting a motion on the floor for the data collection analysis portion after we dispense with this. Ms. Hawkins, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Hi, I'm Gina Hawkins, and I probably missed a lot of what you said because I'm deaf and I read lips. It's not possible here, so I do know most of what you said. So some of you may recall I was the recycling coordinator for the city and public information officer for waste reduction for about 17 years for the city. I was also there at the beginning when we implemented this volume-based rate, helped design, implement, and inform people about how it works, and also know why it doesn't work right now, because there is a strong lack of information out there. So while you've been asking for data, a lot of the data you've been asking for is really important, maybe useful, but it tells you who is paying what rate, but not why. Why do they have the large cart? Is it because they don't know there's a smaller cart? Is it because they moved in, it was there, and just thought that was what the program was? Did they keep it just because it was convenient? Didn't know there were different rates? There's lots of things. They didn't know what to recycle. They didn't have a recycling bin. There's so many reasons why they may be using a larger cart than they need. And, part of it's education, part of it's information, but the informational aspect, I think, is very low right now. I know on my street, I see people without bins. I do my little knock on the door for new neighbors and tell them that how they can reduce their waste, so they can compost their food scraps, yard waste, all that sort of thing. But I just think it would be important to look at some of the things like participation rates. Look at who is putting out bins. I drove around with my little interns back in 1993 so that they could count how many people put their bin out. Did they put it out once a month, twice a month? Because you may think that people aren't recycling when they are. And also, do people know it's unlimited recycling, that they don't have to pay more if they recycle more? Same goes with the yard trash. The county has a slightly different system, but where theirs was limited and ours is unlimited. So there was an incentive for people to compost their tree limbs, leaves, etc. So those sorts of incentives, that's what I did my master's on. I actually correlated things like race, age, education, some of the other ones, income, against how much waste people produce. And I did this for the whole state. So it was a very large study, took a lot of phone calls, but we managed to get that data. It is possible to get that data. And it told me what was going on out there, but it didn't tell me the why. What sort of information were those people being offered? Did they know they had a choice? Was there something more that the local government could have been doing? So
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins, for your time.
I would encourage you to look at that information as well.
Great, yeah, and thank you, that's very helpful. Adam, do you have anybody on the line for us?
I thought I did. Nathan Scott was on the line. Apparently he's trying to get into the building, to get into chambers, to speak directly.
He just walked in, Adam. He just walked in.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I don't have anybody else at this time. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Poe, Commissioners, Nathan Scott. So, respect to this discussion, I think data is good. I think that costs should be equitable across all customers. There shouldn't be cross-subsidization within different classes. It applies to utility rate making, equally to garbage collection. So with respect to my particular situation, I think I have a 64-gallon container. It was there when I purchased my home. Certainly I'm aware of the other options. I don't use that much, but I guess I'm subsidizing you guys by paying more. Maybe I should get a smaller container. But I do think data is very important in driving well thought out, intelligent decision making so that we can achieve equity, whatever that is. If the data shows that there's a better way to do it, then we should, reflect on the data and make well-informed decisions as a commission. But again, the cost should be equitable with GRU electric rates that you just approved the other night, multi-year largest unjustified GRU rate increases in GRU's history. Many would say that's not equitable, and there's a good letter to the editor in that regard. But appreciate the opportunity to speak. I know this has been before the commission for many months, a source of controversy, but we need to put equity in everything we do as a consideration. I mean, Commissioner Johnson's championed that, Commissioner Duncan Walker and former Commissioner Simmons. And equity doesn't stop beyond the city limits of the Gainesville City Commission. So if you're really truly interested about equity and social injustice and all the other things that you talk about, then you need to fix the problem out in Archer that you created. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Adam, do you have anybody on the line?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's nobody on the line at this time.
Okay, anybody else in chambers that wants to speak to this motion? Okay, so I'll just read it one more time in case people are listening and don't see the screen. Motion is direct the city manager's office. And I think included in that, Madam Clerk, was working with other charter officers. Correct? Oh, sorry. Thank you. If I just read the whole thing. To bring us within 90 days, a cost-inclusive plan to engage every garbage container user to help them best use the city's collection service, recognizing that several charter offices will need to be included in execution of such a strategy. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Hayes Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move staff's recommendation, but also add into it that we also look at why people are using different cards as well, if there's information on that.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. The staff recommendation reads, the department recommends assessing possible means to start collecting data that may support an analysis regarding trash and recycling, and that the department reassess this topic when sufficient data is available. And then the last part was?
Also, see if collecting data on why is possible. Why people are selecting or doing certain things as well, not just what they're doing, but why are they doing it.
Okay, very good. So that's a new motion. Anybody in chambers wish to speak to that motion, basically on data collection? Adam, anybody? Okay, all in favor say aye.
No, Mr. Mayor, there's no.
Aye. Sorry, Adam. Jumped the gun, I didn't hear you.
Nobody here.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously as well. All right, we moved on to general public comment. Anybody that has any thoughts they'd like to share with this that weren't on the agenda?
I'll let somebody else go before me.
I don't think there's anybody else.
Okay, I'm trying to get internet within, hold on real quick. May I please have the overhead before I begin? And I'm trying to get to the spot, and there's, unfortunately, there's no internet in the chamber anymore. He took our internet away. Apparently there's no password, so I'm having a really hard problem getting to what I want to show you. So give me 1 second if I can get to that, and if we can have the overhead. Trying to get to the exact spot, so give me 1 second. I apologize for technical difficulties, but they're not. I'd hoped to have internet, and we don't have internet, so I need to get to the timestamp. So bear with me for 1 second, please. I'll just try and see if I can find it manually. So give me 1 second here. Okay. Okay, hold on for 1 second. So anyway, good afternoon, Nathan Scott. I had previously, Commissioner, last week, I'd asked for 15 seconds to clarify a response that was given to a very well-poised question to Commissioner Johnson. And what this video that I'm about to show shows Orgis, Mr. Jason Thomas, under oath, admitting that despite my invitation to contact me, who represented 42 parcel owners, the majority of which were African-American property owners who descended from slaves and sharecroppers. Mr. Thomas from Orgis, in response to my direct cross-examination question, admitted under oath for everyone to see that despite my invitation to contact him, to contact us on behalf of my clients on March 22nd, 2001, which was months before the final hearings on this matter, and shortly after I undertook representation, pro bono representation of those African-American clients that were trying to protect their property, Mr. Thomas admitted under oath that no, he never contacted me. So I'd like to play that for the commission if I can get there, and it may take a second. So bear with. Okay. So we can have the overhead, please. Do it directly. Thank you, sir. Mr. Thomas, good evening. My name is Nathan Scott. I represent the opposing parties 1 through 30 in this proceeding, and I'm doing so on a pro bono basis. During conversation that was had on or about March 22nd, 2021 with Ackerman Legal Counsel, I expressed the willingness on behalf of my clients to have a dialogue with Orgis. Were you informed of that without violating any privilege? It's just conversation. Okay, all right, thank you. But you would stipulate for the record that you never contacted me to discuss how this project might be better received by the community on behalf of the parties that I represent, correct? I'm not sure I understand. Okay, let me slow down. So irrespective of what may have happened that you discussed with counsel, you never called me directly to discuss this project on behalf of my clients, correct? I have never called you directly. Okay, all right, thank you. Now, under oath, I never called you directly. Privileged conversation, because it's hard to hear what he said. First thing he said was privileged conversation. Second, I don't understand your question. Then when I asked the question in simple terms, no, I never contacted you. So for the misinformation folks to sit there and spin and act like we weren't available to meet, that's ridiculous. We met with Commissioner Aprizia on her request, my clients, and I was there. Thank you.
Mr. Scott. Anybody else have any general public comment? Adam, do you have anybody?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's nobody on the lines at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any member comment? All right, thank you very much. No further business. We are adjourned.